but there are people who are wrong on the internet. Hey everybody, welcome to a twofer here. We're going to be doing a pair of videos, and I couldn't be more excited to have my good buddy RICKY, the YouTube tech guy, joining on the channel. Hey Ricky, thanks for dropping by.
Absolutely, Juan. Love to be by here. Even if some people are wrong on the internet.
That's right, because that's what we're really going to get to the bottom of, is who is wrong on the internet. We've got a pair of videos. There's a video on my channel that Ricky is going to be contributing to, and then I'm going to be joining you on your channel to talk about some of this right here. I think people have used phrases like insufferably sardonic whenever I talk about wireless charging. I've been really snarky about wireless charging. I'm not a huge fan. So I felt it was appropriate, since that's my bias, that's my preference. You have mentioned in some videos and talked about premium tier phones, really expensive devices, and why you do value wireless charging. And I felt like I should give you a platform to explain yourself, sir. To explain
I don't mind explaining myself.
Audience.
Absolutely. I don't mind justifying why I'm right, because when you're right, you feel that presence of being
right in your bones.
So yeah, I have always loved wireless charging. For one, the convenience factor that has only grown as Qi 2 and MagSafe have come along, right? Because one thing I loved about it was just like, okay, I can just drop it down by the bedside and leave it there, right? It was, a lot of people kind of do it overnight and they kind of just set and forget it. Now I acknowledge before you even say anything, well, but yeah, if you put it just wrong, then you didn't charge for the night. I understand that, but that's why I'm saying it's even gotten better with Qi 2 and MagSafe along the line.
For sure.
But always, I've always used a standing one as well, which helped align it more than a flat one. So for anyone out there who does want to use wireless charging, I always recommend using a standing one. If you don't have MagSafe or any of those, use a standing one. It helps aligns it much better.
Because I do have, like, all the way back to the very first generation Nokia Qi charger. I was really bullish on charging
with the window phones.
Back with the Lumias, that's right. And I was one of those people saying, like, I can't foresee a future where this is not a primary feature. This is a make or break. And over time, I've been a little disappointed in how little it's evolved since those Lumia days. So we set up kind of a showdown. I feel like OnePlus caught a ton of flack on phones like the 11 and then also on the OnePlus Open for not including wireless charging. And we've actually run this experiment twice. We did it with last generation phones. The S20. You had the S23 Ultra. Was that the phone that you were using?
The S23 Ultra. Yeah.
So I did it with the OnePlus 11, but wouldn't you know it, we have the new hotnesses where it's going to be a OnePlus 12 versus S24 Ultra. And you've got good data to share on actually something that is kind of an exciting improvement to the overall wireless charging scene. Something I was not expecting.
I'm curious if you've had any difference as well too. So with the fast wired charging too, right? But yeah, so with wireless charging, I will say that I saw in full disclosure, obviously, we both try to do this as scientifically as possible, but there are always things that happen. And for the beginning of mine, it seemed like it was stuck on a screen, and we'll put it up here. Basically, it just wouldn't get off of, right? So I don't know if that affected the slower charge of it, but after 10 minutes, when we first put it on there, it was 75.9 degrees, right? After 10 minutes, it went to 88, and after 30 minutes, 91, and then at an hour, 95. This is about a almost 10-degree difference compared to last generation on the S23 Ultra. We were at 106.
Big deal, because that is one of my primary arguments against wireless charging, is how previous generations cook your battery, even when the coils are properly aligned.
Exactly. And I did have a case. So how I did it was basically a different one of this, but the one that Sam supplied me was the one I was charging. So a similar case like this, where it gives you MagSafe, then I took it off to do the thermal check, and we both did the thermal check with the Pixel thermometer.
Used for the Pixel thermometer.
Yes.
Hooray!
And I saw, by the way, it has an update for human sensing now,
It
for
does.
temperature sensing.
Yeah.
So I noticed that when I was doing it today. I was like, oh, it got an update. So yeah, finally got a use for it. Yeah. But just I was like very happy to see the difference, right? In terms
Yeah.
of okay, like now it is better thermals. Like they always tell us, right? Oh no, we have new thermal compound on it. The heat sink is so much bigger. And I'm like, okay, but does it still get
Right.
hot in my hand? That's always the question. And at least we can measure this one that
Yeah.
it was 10-degree difference. I mean, that's a substantial difference
I,
one year over year.
I mean, I think it's fair for us to say what we're doing is an anecdotal test. We drained our
Yeah.
phones till they shut off.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, I'd like to point out whoever's out there experiencing battery anxiety, like, oh no, my phone might not make it through the day. I used my OnePlus 12 as primarily a communications tool, and I did tons of like audio. Like that's just normal for
Mm-hmm.
me. I constantly have screen off, lots of
Yeah.
use on podcasts and music. It took me 2 days and
Wow.
12 hours to kill the battery under what I consider to be good communicator use.
Mm-hmm.
And you were saying also, like, it was incredibly difficult to drain the battery on the S24
Really, it
Ultra.
really is. Like I left it, on YouTube for the night, and like in the past, that was a surefire way. Like you woke up, it was
Right.
dead. I woke up and it was like at 13%. And I'm like, why are you not dead yet? So
Whoa.
it was just like, okay, fine. And I had to like run a game, a high-end game, just to drain that
Right.
remaining. And it still took like about 15 minutes or so. And that was like downloading updates from that game and
Yeah.
all this kind of stuff. And it just still took a while. So yeah. I mean, I think we were talking about, I think it was probably around Gen 2 or or plus
Yeah.
one. I was confused with OnePlus and plus one for Snapdragon, right? But yeah, it really has taken a turn for like the battery life is really good on a lot of these phones that have these chips now. Period.
I remember when it was just like for the 8 Gen 1 and the 888, we were all really
Mhm.
happy if we got like 5 hours of screen on time just doing
Yeah,
basic stuff. And I
yeah.
know on the OnePlus 11, I was doing video streaming while looping Geekbench runs.
Hmm.
So I was split screening, hitting the network, and running CPU benchmarking, and it still took like 5 hours to completely nuke that battery. So first of all, I would just like to point out to people what we're doing actually isn't that great of a test because if you're kind of floating in that like 30 to 80% window on your
Hmm.
battery life, I feel like you're pretty good under even
Yeah.
moderate use. That's more than a full day and night of really
Hmm.
using your phone. So I was hoping you could also break down, you used a wireless charger. What charger combo did you use? So you mentioned the case, but were
Yeah.
you using a Samsung charge pad or is this like a MagSafe
It's a
type
MagSafe
coil?
one. So
Okay.
from Anchor, I'll give you the link so you can kind of pull it up. But I forget what it is, but it's a really like power station techie one. It has a
Mhm.
front MagSafe, and on the back it actually has like outlets on the back, so you can like
Oh, okay,
plug
okay,
in
okay.
other products, and then two Type C cables on the back end of it. So I kind of put my watch charging cable there, so I can do that, and then a wired one if I do need to charge faster. So I do acknowledge that sometimes you need to charge faster.
Just
But
saying it's nice.
here's my thing on why I love wireless
Okay.
charging and why I find it a pain when a somebody like maybe like a OnePlus or anything like that that
Sure.
maybe have proprietary chargers that
Hmm.
to get those fast speeds, right? So there's lots of standards out there, PD 3.1, I think now
Hmm.
we even got to, and then 2.1, and all these different ones. So sometimes they accept them, but sometimes they don't. They only accept their fast one. But my thing is I have wireless chargers all over my house, at work, all in these places. In my car, it's a MagSafe
Sure.
wireless charger, right? So for the phone that you had as well, even though it didn't
Hmm.
charge wirelessly, I had a ring connector for the open just so I
Sure.
could attach it on there right there. So for me, it's just more so like, man, like I love just having it everywhere. But then
Hmm.
when I don't have it, then I'm like, oh, I have to plug in the wired one. It's
Right.
more of a force of habit that you literally have to change. Whereas
Hmm.
every other flagship, for the most part, has had it, so it made it easier, right? I
Now,
don't have to change my habits because I
I'll,
got this flagship phone.
I'll also put you on the spot for just a
Yeah.
second, though.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are the costs, ballpark, of
Mm-hmm.
having powerful enough chargers? Because you can't just have like the old 2 amp style
Mm-hmm.
chargers if you're going to at least crank 10 to 15 watts on
Mm-hmm.
a wireless charge pad. And then the accompanying coil costs,
Uh-huh.
because aren't you having to mix and match chargers and coils to facilitate having all of those all over your house?
Are you talking about so you're talking about from the brand side, not from the consumer side of how much does it cost me
Well,
to
no,
buy
I
them?
mean, like, if someone were going to outfit their home and their car with as
Mm-hmm.
many coils as you have,
Mm-hmm.
ballpark, couple $100.
Yeah, I will acknowledge that there are a lot of coils going on. Yes, of course. Okay. But at the same time, the benefit is that, these do come with essentially all of them have at least like, QC3 charging, right? Like Qualcomm
Right.
Quick Charge 3.0 for these cables. So at the same time, you get both. You get a cable that would have been made anyway and the wireless charger. So you can switch off when you want to, but also the fact that, those cables aren't proprietary in terms of like, oh, well, you don't have, if you don't have, pretty much everything as QC 3.0 and PD at least 2.0 right now. In, I would even say even, entry level smartphones have that.
When you're using those chargers, though,
Mm-hmm.
can you use them with anything else? Like, can you charge a tablet or a
Yeah.
laptop or
I,
something
I, I
else?
can,
So
I can
you
take
just got
out
to
the
disconnect
cord
the coil. Right,
and
right, right.
then
Okay.
do it that way. So I can do that on, with the exception of the one I used for this test, the Anchor one, because that was the newest
Mhm.
one. So I was just like, all right, this will probably be the best for this case scenario. But the other ones I have had, I have had for many, many years. Standing
Right.
ones, as soon as the 15-watt came out, I have ones, forget all of the different brands, but I have Samsung ones. I have one of those really fancy ones, I forget, that are like leather standing one and all that kind of stuff. Really nice ones that I've had all 15-watt charging, but I have not needed to upgrade them because
Hmm.
although you have pointed out that, well, but there's been no advancement in them, but that means I haven't needed to upgrade them in like at least 5 years. So there's a pro and a con for that. That if there is no advancement, then there's no reason that
Then
you need to buy new ones.
you could just sit tight. I love it.
So
Well,
yeah.
I feel like you've laid out some really good data,
Mm-hmm.
and I gotta say, like, it does hurt my argument just a little
Mm-hmm.
that Samsung does seem to have improved one of my least favorite aspects of wireless charging, which is heat.
Mm-hmm.
It's because it's not just does it peak at a certain temperature, it's does that heat sustain for a part of that charge cycle and how long? And that
Yeah.
to me is where I feel you're putting additional wear and tear on a battery. So I am really happy to see. I mean, like, we did this test on last gen, and just you wouldn't expect that kind of improvement year over year.
No, I mean that kind of heat management is something like laptop manufacturers would love to
Yeah.
have, or desktop
Yeah.
manufacturers. Like, wait, 10 degrees lower in just a year's time, year over year, a generational upgrade. That would be awesome.
Especially knowing that like the peak power draw on the HN3
Yeah,
actually got higher. Like this
yeah,
chip can eat more of your battery if you really take it to task over the
yeah.
HN2. So we know that Samsung has done something kind of interesting here. And as much as I am loath to ever say anything nice about Samsung, I do believe that deserves some kudos. So
Yeah. I mean, at least when it comes to this part, you have to give them that.
I do, but I don't want to, but I will.
I will tell you one thing. I don't know if you know this, so I just want your take on it, just because it does have to do
Sure.
with wireless charging and Samsung on this new phone.
Sure.
So one thing that we found out while like on a trip, I did get, went to Samsung, got the new phone and everything, and I found out that the S Pen does not work when you connect a strong magnet to it on the back. So it
Oh.
literally, it just goes from like working perfectly to not working. So you cannot have a magnet on the back, which is why I believe we did not advance to Qi 2 on the S24 series.
That is a really good point, because I feel like a lot of people came out and were like, well, Samsung didn't even give us Qi 2, even though the spec has actually been defined and Apple contributed,
Mm-hmm.
MagSafe
Yeah.
battery alignment to the spec. That's a really good point.
It's an interesting puzzle.
Yeah, because also like this is part of the sort of the back and the forth. Like I will use a fast charging phone plugged in. You know, if you're using pads where you have to set the phone down, you're going to pick it up to use your S Pen. So maybe that's not as big a deal. But if you have a magnet that attaches a coil on a cable to the back of your phone, I could absolutely see where someone would be like, oh, well, that's annoying. I can't use my S Pen.
Yeah, and it's something that I've gotten used to. I've gotten used to. All right, you have to use my S Pen. I just take this off, right, as a kickstand or whatever. But it's something that it is interesting. Of like, I wonder because they could have technically done it on the S24 Plus and S24, but chose not to because then it's like you're giving a feature to the lower models the bigger one can't have with the S Pen. So thought that was kind of interesting tidbit. In a little bit in your favor of like, well, can this evolve or can it keep going because of different
What's so
technologies?
funny is like that reminds me so much of we don't have to. I'm old, so this is an old guy reminiscing about stuff. But like somewhere on my desk over here, I still have. Oh, it's just out of reach. I still have my Note 4, and we used to have these little coil add-ons that we could kind of like plug into the battery terminals inside the phone to give it wireless charging. You could add an adhesive coil to the backplate of that phone, but it would also kind of get in the way of like NFC. It's like we've always had this kind of like space issue with like, well, if we give it this one feature, maybe it borks another feature. So I really appreciate you taking the time on this one because I feel like I've got good data to also rejoin on your channel. We're going to talk about fast cabled charging and how exciting that is and why more people should be using that instead of wireless charging. But I felt like for all of my persnicketyness, there haven't been a lot of people that have been willing to just jump in and say like, I really like it and this is why. And I think you've brought up some great points today. So hopefully everybody out there, you're going to watch both of these videos. Drop some comments on what Ricky has to say for this video. Go over to Ricky's channel. We'll have links underneath these videos in the description so that you can catch both sides of this conversation and just see. I'd be really curious. Maybe we'll set out like a poll. Like who was more convincing in their support of their
Who really was right
charging standard? or even did anything we say help change someone's mind?
Exactly.
On these? And we'll get like a good sort of an accounting of what's going on with the audience, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. All of the relevant links and data we're gonna share, like screenshots and stuff like that, all underneath in the description below. Thank you so much for all the support lately. All of the people who are out there clicking on links and going to websites and following on social media. And make sure you catch part 2, and I'll catch you all, and we'll catch you all on the other video that I'm going to make over on Ricky's channel.
Click.
Best ending ever.